How you doing this morning? Hope everybody's doing well. Uh, what I wanted to talk about this morning are watch companies that are sort of ready to tip over. Hey, Dominic, how you doing? Haven't seen you for a while. Glad you could make it today. Anyway, I what happened was that I've had this Chaumet dandy arty open face. The workmanship on the dial and on the case and on the straps, fantastic. It's got an ETA movement with a uh, Agonaise gearing by Agonar, so it's got a really interesting movement, but it's very hard to wind and set, and yet it's one of my favorite watches. I'm not even sure why, but in looking at why they went out of, I mean why they didn't so much go out of business is that uh, I guess they weren't selling enough, and Chaumet decided they're just going to make women's watches. And so I thought today might be an interesting day to talk about, are there what other watches are there that are in danger of extinction, and why, and what they might want to try to do about it. Oh my goodness. Uh, Hi, Michael. How you doing? Jose, how are you? HRM. I suspect most of the microbrands will disappear sooner or later. Hundreds of microbrands popped up during COVID. Yeah, that I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right about that. There are a lot of reasons, and very few of them seem to make it. We started Larique. I don't know if we're a micro brand. We're sort of a conglomerate, I guess. Uh, how we'll do in the future, but I'm very hopeful for us because I think we've got the right direction, and I think we got the right guys involved. But we'll see. I mean, it's a very different kind of grouping. There's a one called the Cooperative. They've been around for a while. They're a little different. In fact, they're a lot different than we are. But that's I don't know if we're really a micro brand or something else. Whereas you have well, like one Underdog. There is a sort of a new one, and Babot, it's a French one. Some of these, whether they'll be around or not, I don't know. Right now, they're very much around, so it's one of those things. But what I really wanted to sort of look into, what about some of the better known brands that maybe seem to be in trouble? I saw this chart yesterday. I was looking at some charts, and uh, two companies. One was Swatch, and the other was LVMH. Now, LVMH is doing fine, but not necessarily in the watches that are branded LVMH. They have Bulgari, which is doing fine. They even have Chaumet. And maybe LVMH said, hey, you guys, you're not really getting a lot of guys who like the idea of having a watch called a dandy. But I'll tell you, their dress watches, they're just their regular ones with the steel, and they have a crown. It's easy to wind and a dial that sort of parts of it aren't hidden during parts of the day. But I mean, like it's like a great piece of sort of a for jewelry. It's hard to beat patent leather. I mean, who's got a patent leather? Wow. Anyhow, oh, oh, they. Oh, I'm glad to hear they allowed your allowed Wi-Fi in your padded cell. Hi, Rich. How you doing? Dominic, the internet is very beneficial for startups and microbrands. Absolutely, absolutely, you're absolutely right. Dominic, related to that, I think is I don't know. Like Mark Twain said, it was a little early to talk of his passing, but I'll tell you, your ADs are, I don't know, they had some ADs still, I think, rule the roost in terms of like, you will do this and you will do this, and here's several hoops you have to jump through for some brands, in particular Rolex. They're doing just fine, by the way, but they went down. They lost a big hunk of change. We'll put it that way. Michael, aside from FP Journe and MBF, who sold 25% of to Chanel, all independents may fold. Yeah, that's the thing. I got the one I'm wearing right now. I have on a uh, Daniel Roth, Metropolitan 24 Cities. Okay, one of my favorite watches. In fact, I have two Daniel Roths. Both of them are big favorites. They've been dead for years. And one of the interesting things is that LVMH decided to resurrect the name Daniel Roth. And so they come out with this like $100,000 tourbillon by Roth. I really wish they could, if they want it, if LVMH is in a little sort of hot water with certain things, what they could do, they could revive a lot of these watches that Roth had done years ago, and give them a new paint job and bring them back out again. I think they'd do well, and I could be wrong, but they may. Hi, how you doing, Brian? Yeah, you're right, Michael, about FP Journe, MB&F, and F. Who's F? Anyway, um, there's there are a lot of other things that seem to be going on. Now, here you have us, which is sort of like money quarterbacks about this, but that's okay. we may be right about something. One thing I'll say, at least we know what we want. Apparently, some Swiss watch manufacturers have already appealed to the government to stay in business. Yeah, there was the thing I was reading, there was a big dump. The one that took the biggest hit was Swatch. Now, by Swatch, I don't mean all of the ones that they own. They may have taken a hit too, but the actual brand Swatch. And what they said is that people who are buying swatches were now buying smartwatches, Apple watches, and some of the other ones that they have. So, we'll see. That's sort of an interesting thing. For a while now, I've been saying they haven't really seen the impact of smart watches, because I don't know, it's sort of like they got all excited when quartz watches came out and almost killed them. And then they came back with the concept of high horology and all of these things like that. Sort of, in other words, sort of like an artist. Here are the Picassos, and here are the real artists, sort of horological artists. And whether I think people would be perfectly happy to have a smartwatch. I mean, compared to what we pay for our watches, are dirt cheap. I mean, really good ones are dirt cheap. I don't know. Hi, James. How you doing? Rancher, who needs to be Don? Don Haynes. How's Don doing? Hey, Brian. Coincidentally, I'm wearing my Dandy Artie today. Love that watch. I mean, you could, you take another watch that is a high quality watch and you compare them to the workmanship on this thing, and it's just amazing. But um, like I said, who were they talking to when they came up with the name? Well, let's name the men's watches dandies. I thought, like, what? Why don't you call them fops or something like that? Here's our new Chaumet fop. Um, they could do some stuff because I got to tell you, I may get one anyway. Not that I don't have enough dress watches, but I like their sort of what I call a sports dress watch. They have those big, uh, really interesting looking steel bands on them. They're extremely well made. They have ETA movements in them. So I'm not going to say anything about that, except I will say that the ETA in this one is done quite well. And then it has the Agenor module, which gives it this slow moving Ferris wheel. So yeah, it's kind of stuff you could watch all day. Daniel Ross was a man. He was a big man. Yeah, I don't know. He seems to be. I worry about him. I'll put it that way. Goldfinger, good morning. How are you doing? I think Rolex won't be around. Caesar, Rolex will be around longer than either you or I. they're sort of the forever watch company. Caesar, I think Parmigiani might be hard to stay in business. Seriously speaking, that was my concern. They have coming out the guy who used to be I think one of the CEOs in the watch business over at LVMH took them over, and they seem to be really on the upswing right now. Parmigiani. Here's what's I think is more likely to happen. Um, I don't know if Michel Parmigiani has been well, to tell you the truth. I could be wrong about that, but that was one of the rumors that I picked up. His stuff is, I think, about 100 times better than most people realize. He's a really good watchmaker. The issue was that he, like a lot of really good watchmakers, he wasn't that good of a businessman. So what you have is the guy that took over is good at a lot of things, reading the market, using it, selling watches, and so forth. They're doing quite well now. But here's what else is going on with them, and this could have like tsunamic effects, and that is the Sandoz Family Foundation that owns this whole vertical watchmaking empire, really, of Parmigiani, Vacher Fluier, Alto Capa, the hairspring maker. They have companies that make everything, including, excuse me, the little parts that go into watches. So they may be around, but in different ownership. And from what I've heard is that LVMH is very interested in it. And this obviously would be a concern to Hermes, who owns 25% of Vacher. And I think they would feel that if LVMH bought the other 75% from the Sandoz Family Foundation, they may lose access to it because Hermes and LVMH are direct competitors. By the way, speaking of watch companies that have been on the upswing, Hermes has been. I was looking at some figures, and I mean, in terms of profits and this and everything else that they have, Hermes has, H. Moser has, F.P. Journe has. F.P. Journe was, this is a company that man, I'll tell you, they are very high demand, and so is Richard Mille, and I never understood that. I mean, but his watches cost a fortune, yet they're still in high demand. What are some companies, though, that you're a little concerned about? Hey, Lazard, what do you think? Hi, Doc. Brands that may disappear if I had to put my money on one, it would be Bremont. Bremont, yeah, Bremont has these incredibly good cases, but I don't know what they keep shooting themselves in the foot. Um, you may be right about that, Doc. Dominic, I know what you mean. Ever hear of Tool Matabo? One day the rep was telling me we'll never be in the big box store, and the next they were in the big box store. Oh, Jesus. There's good and bad for being in the art store. Michelle, over 3 million moon swatches sold. Oh my God, I didn't know that. 3 million of them did? As H.L. Mencken said, no one ever went broke underestimating the taste of the American public. I guess it goes beyond the American public by far, the world public. Artsy fartsy to you too, Rancher. James, what's up? I wonder who is buying Breitling's. The new direction is very ordinary. Breitling was one of the ones that they were concerned about. Um, what the partners, I think, own them now. There's sort of an interesting thing. You know, one that surprised me that was doing well was Chopard, and they are the fourth most recognized name in luxury watches after Rolex, Patek Philippe, and Omega. That surprised me, but I'm glad to see they're doing well. The other thing I I really like about what they've done, and I think this is important for any watch company, is to have a good spread from very affordable to some really excellent horology, not just high price stuff. This is what I don't understand about Richard Mille. I just don't see like really interesting horology in that in the watches, and yet people are paying $200,000 for those things. Go figure. What do I know, right? James, it's interesting. eBay and Chrono have put fees and listings up instead of adding value to stimulate market. Yes, that not quite sure what that is, James. They put fees and listings up. I'm not what they put up prices. You know, the other thing I've been seeing more of is make offer. I think a lot of guys, when things are really, really up there, is make offer. They did another thing too when the watch prices were going crazy. They put in call for pricing. Well, what that means is that they don't want to have a price. They don't want to name a price because they're afraid if they name one, it'll be too low. Of course, that's what collectors want. They won't want is too low. And so you call them and you find out what it is. And what they do is that they're judging the market when they give you a price. So I guess that's okay. I mean, there are all kinds of ways to make money with watches, but there are also all kinds of ways to lose money. As collectors, we're supposed to lose money. Fools and their money is easily separated. HRM, Omega hit it out of the park with their moon watch release. They sold many of those, and the White Speedy and now FOIS are dynamite offerings. my boutique guy said sales are up since the moon watch. Yeah, that was something. I saw a big brouhaha about that, and I'm glad to see it. My disappointment, though, is still with them. They're owned by Swatch. They're shoving in those crap silicon hairsprings, and I don't know. It's one thing. Patek Philippe lost 10%. They went down 10%, and of course, I will blame everything on the silicon hairsprings, but that's me. What do I know? Um, hey, I'll tell you something. Hacking. Um, I don't know how many of you are uh, feel hacking or stop seconds are important in a watch you get. Uh, I am not. In fact, the opposite. I'd much rather have a watch without hacking than one with it. The reason for it has nothing to do with my usual idiosyncrasies, but rather it has to do with some engineers who were talking to the head of Patek Philippe a number of years ago. And for years, Patek Philippe didn't have hacking because the engineer said, hey, that's not good for the watch. And so um, I I can see that, when you see this arm come down on the balance wheel and stops it, and then you pull it back, and then it starts up again. That's not good for it. That's why FP Journe, they don't have hacking or stop seconds. Unfortunately, some really very well admired ones do, such as Lang and Heim, when was Marco Lang's idea. I have a feeling that that precision that the Germans can't help themselves. I had a German grandfather, and precision. Swedes are even more so. Let's see what you guys have. Hey, Morning Wood. I'm looking for my brother whose name is Roger Wood. He comes on JJ Watch Hangouts channel. Okay. I don't know if he's here. It's sort of like, what are you doing? Slumming? Hi, Keith. How you doing? Keith said, "Brigade. They may be in trouble." I don't know. I know Blancpain is. Trying to think. One, or practically two, they used to be owned by the Kering Group, and this is Girard-Perregaux and Ulysse Nardin. And they sort of went off on their own, and they sort of formed their own group. And I think they have another sort of off Broadway brand with them that they took with them. I don't know how well they're doing. I tell you, one, it's sort of like it's been on life support for the last 20 years is Volcane. But Volcane is sort of like, those foods that they put a lot of preservatives in. You can get a hot dog 15 years old, and it's as good as it was when it was new. I don't know what a volcano is sort of like. They have enough sales to keep on keeping on. They have their own movement. I don't know what it is. HRM, referring to Doc, artificial scarcity is taught to AD employees. There is a reason they now offer discounts on Aqua Terras that used to have year plus waiting list. Yeah, there is the real market there. You can have you know you can have real and false scarcities. You can have the same thing with gluts. You can say there's no glut, even though there's a glut. That's what discounts come from. I have a Chopard LUC Skull 1. I would sell my uh, Longa, Speedy, 321, and others before I let it go. Everyone thinks it's quartz, but when I show them the micro rotor, they're amazed. Yeah, I'm amazed. It's a micro rotor. Way to go, Doc. You show them your micro rotor. Dominic, on a local note, USA Watchmaking, RGM had an open house. What an amazing manufacturer. Seen his entire operation from each movement part to making a dial. Guy Lochet met his watchmaker, spoke with Roland. I had a really interesting talk with him a few years ago. Uh, this is when he had used the Jacques 736, and he had bought a bunch of them, I think, in early 2000 or late 1999. And he knew Jean-Pierre Jacques, who had to go to jail because he and some other idiots decided to steal and a bunch of Rolex cases and make make fake Rolexes. It was just such an idiot move. There was somebody from, I think, Ulysse Nardin and Minerva involved as well. They were just like super boneheads, and they caught him. And we were talking about that. And he had some very interesting insights into what he's out of the Hoosgow now, Jacques is. And I've been trying to get a hold of him, and he won't answer. I've written to his son and said, "Hey, I collect these watches with these movements. What do you say?" Nothing. Apparently, he has some very strict instructions about staying out of the watch business. But the rumor that I heard was that sort of he's very discreet about it, but he's doing some things. Anyhow, enough of that. Adios, James. Yeah, the post office closes early. Hi, Henry. How you doing, man? I wouldn't be surprised if some of the new independents go fade away once the dust settles. Yeah, same here. You know what can happen with some? I think a lot of these young guys who are really good, they come out, and instead of going to work for Patek Philippe or one of the other big watch manufacturers, or even some of the smaller ones, to me, the people that they get to work at Agenor, for example, I'd much rather work with the people at Agenor than I would, let's say, uh, Omega or one of the big companies, or Gerbel Forcé or FP Journe or one of those. It would be, I mean, that's like does beautiful things to your Vita. And then eventually after some years experience and they know a thing or two, they go into independence. Well, this is what I've seen. There are a lot of really talented young guys, and there's this young woman who's she's on the waiting list. She's on the candidate list to join the AHCI, and her stuff is quite good. But right now she's doing independent work, and I wonder, if you look at a lot of these guys, what they did is that they worked for somebody, then they worked as in restoration, and then they went on their own. A lot of these guys are coming out of WASPAC or whatever called the watchmaking school, and they're going out on their own right away. They may become wildly successful, or they may sort of fade into decide, well, I'm gonna go to work for a company where I'll get a regular paycheck. I don't know. Hi, Simon. How you doing? Baume et Mercier. I don't know what they're doing. Richemont gave them, their Baume-matic, so it's sort of in-house movement. I don't know. I'll tell you one thing though, Bon and Mercier, wonderful designs. They have fantastic designs. Twinkies live on forever. Yeah. I think sort of Volcane is a Twinkie of watchmaking. Hi, Sinsa. How you doing? Not sure about hacking, but for example, entry level ETAs and clones has hacking feature and works perfectly. Yeah, they do work perfectly. They work fine, but they're not good for the movement. I got one that's, mine's got, I don't know if this has got hacking or not. It probably does. I've got a lot of watches with hacking that seem to work fine. One of the ones that I have a little more faith in is the one by Moritz Grossmann. When you pull the crown out to set your watch on a Moritz Grossmann, next to it there's this little button you push, and so once you're finished, you push the crown in, and nothing will happen. But then you push the button, and then it'll start up again. I think that button has some arresting um, properties with the gearing rather than clamping down on the balance wheel. You think that hacking is a useful feature? Well, I don't. I think it's. I mean, I like precision as well, but you know, okay, man, we're gonna synchronize our watches before we go over the top. If I do that, this is what I'll synchronize with my iPhone. that thing has a time. I think that's connected somewhere to an atomic clock for accuracy. But on these other ones, hacking, I would rather not have hacking. HRM, LVMH might start buying up more independents if the market continues going this way. I got a feeling they are in the market, HRM. I think you're absolutely right. Rancher. Seems like a lot of brands and ADs were treating their customers very badly during the bubble. They may have burned a few bridges. I think so too. I hope they have. I still think it was sort of like they should understand that the customers are doing them a favor. They're not doing anybody a favor. Without customers, where are they? Same thing with some of these other companies. One of the things that Patek Philippe did, they didn't have hacking for many years. And finally, because they got whined at, I guess, by enough of their customers that they finally put it in. And I wonder, a lot of, with the desire for more precision rather than doing what Rolex and H. Moser have done with developing better hairsprings that were non-magnetic and had less effect by heat and cold. They just went and threw in silicon. Yeah, okay. Do they work better? Sure they do. Is that, can you adjust them? Okay. HRM, very true. In the Netherlands, we only have one company that retails Rolex. They're renowned for selling pieces straight to resellers. Some folks have been on the waiting list for 8 years. Man, what about Laurent Perrier? I think he's doing okay. I think it was one of the ones they were talking. This one list I saw, Caesar, they had them on a list doing okay. I like the looks of his watches, and I like his movements are really gorgeous. They just didn't feel right when I put them on, so maybe I had the light ones. To quote the horned one, couldn't have happened to a nicer bunch. You see you next Tuesday. There you go. Jose, Maurice Grossman, kind of hacking is, king of hacking. I think Maurice Grossman I there's I think they have something in the gearing. I have to take a look at it. In fact, I can go talk to Christine Hutter. She's going to be at the Watch Time show next week. Good grief, it's next week already? Wow, what's today? Saturday? Next Friday, a week from yesterday. Hot diggity dog. Um, Moritz uses a retrograde type snail cam for the hacking seconds. Wow, I didn't know that. Very user friendly feature. I wish more brands had it. Hi, Jose. Kind of to you. Hi, Abs. Only way the independent brand surviving after retirement of exile of lead watchmakers or founders is by selling them to big conglomerates. No other option. That can be true. That can happen. You're right. Hey, Vladimir. How you doing, man? Rancher. Uh-oh. Is it that time? Yeah, it is. Okay. All right, guys. I've got to go now. I got a topic for this afternoon that I'm all set up with. So, Rancher, but if you have some, I always like you always have a bunch of good ideas too. Hi, Henry. How you doing? Shimo, Bulgari, LVMH will stay, if not dominate, luxury watch market someday. Boy, Henry, you may be right. It's simply because LVMH has so much money. Velvia man have seen the comment, would never buy an El Primero because of no hacking. Could not disagree more. And I don't know. I I don't know why it's so important. I mean, it's like you're talking about a little second, and if you want that kind of precision, you use a timer or something. You don't use your watch. I hope independents team up and start a new conglomerate together instead of being bought up. I tell you, the problem with that independence, that's the problem with independence. They're very independent. I think AHCI is sort of an organization that tries to do that. But anyway, guys. All right. Well, I got to go before I get in trouble again. And thank you guys for coming. I love these discussions. I like them more than you do because you have so many good ideas. Thank you. Thanks, Rancher, for getting me out of trouble. Hope to see you this afternoon, 4 o'clock New York time if you're interested. Take care.